to every person who voted for a silent voice in the voting that I did back in June. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am so glad that I have finally read this iconic and prestigious manga. Hello friends, happy Friday. I am so very excited that you're here. As I shared, I read one of the first manga out of the 4 of the voting that took place. If you want to see the results, check out this video here. I had 2 special guests. It was so much fun. And out of the 4 manga, I decided to go ahead and read A Silent Voice first. And I finished reading it this past weekend, as well as watched the movie. And wow, I have so many thoughts. I'm really hoping that I can convey all of them. This is a very moving series, and there's so much that I want to say because there are so many different elements that I really enjoyed about this. But before I dive in sharing all of my thoughts, if you're not familiar with A Silent Voice is about our main character here, Shoya, as well as this young woman, Shoko. In the beginning, when this manga kicks off, or when it starts, Shoya is a bully, and Shoko is deaf. She cannot hear, and they're in elementary school. I believe they are in 6th grade, and because she is different, Shoya decides to, like I said, severely bully her to the point where she ends up transferring schools. Many years later, he is a senior in high school as well. I believe Shoko is as well, and he wants to make up for the past wrongs. And that is, what this series is about in a very much of a nutshell. There are so many feelings, so much is woven in to this story. Shoya honestly has one of the best, most transforming arcs that I have ever read in manga. I know that is a huge statement, but I was just blown away how much he changes, because I will be honest, when I read this first volume, if I had not known from all these other people who have read A Silent Voice said it's one of the best redemption stories, I would have dropped this manga hands down. This first volume was extremely tough to get through. Shoya really is a bully. The more he bullies Shoko, the more my stomach turned, the more upset I was, the more angry I was. And I was like, I don't know how I can keep going. There's just so very little hope in this first volume. It's hard to see how this manga is going to get better, how Shoya is going to get better, because he takes joy in bullying her. He takes joy hurting her, more or less, even though he says it's just for jokes. And the class sort of gets in on it, his friends get up on it. But what was really hard, though, as well, and though I will say, even though it was hard seeing, I never imagined my feelings towards Shoya would ever change through the progression of this manga. I was pretty gung-ho in my dislike for Shoya in the beginning. But then, when things turn and she has lost, Shoko has had 8 I believe it was 8 hearing aids either destroyed, ruined, or lost. The principal comes and says that the person who is responsible for this is going to have to pay, I forget how much money it was. It was a lot of money, though. They are going to have to pay back the expenses of those hearing aids being damaged. And Shoya gets thrown under the bus. So literally, his classmates turn, his teacher turns him in. It was literally like a night and day kind of switch kind of thing. I guess that'd be really slow, but it was almost like instant. Suddenly his so-called friends were now bullying him, because when Shoko transferred, all the blame got put on Shoya, despite that there were other students who were bullying her, but he took the fall, took the blame. And it was hard in that moment seeing Shoya so upset. And honestly, that began his, I do not want to say adventure, his journey of self-hate and self-loathing. And things really took a turn in this second volume, and you really start to see Shoya's heart. And he is just such a cute and awkward young man, and I found him deeply relatable. And one of my favorite or best parts of this story is seeing just the internal dialogue of Shoya. That is the one biggest disappointment I had with the movie. The movie is very good, do not get me wrong, but I love Shoya's internal dialogue. It just shines off the page, and you see this young man's anguish, you see how much he hates himself, you see his earnesty to really just not redeem himself in Shoko's eyes, but to make up, to help her have friends again, to help reconcile broken friendships, where she can have this beginning that he hopes for her now. Maybe he didn't in the beginning, and he even tells her that when he first started learning sign language, which was absolutely amazing, that going from this bullying to learning sign language, and he tells her, I learned it so I could give you a piece of my mind. And oh my goodness, just the feels in that moment, Shoko's response and how she ran from him at that instance. And I feel like I got all just mixed up where I didn't go in the right order. And going with that, so he confronts her, and like I said, he really hates himself. And it was hard in this volume scene that he wanted to take his own life. And his mom is just so relatable. Her actions through the whole manga were really relatable. And my heart just really went out to her, because you see how much he just wants things to change. And even if he's very uncertain of his actions, even if he's questioning everything, he's doubting everything, he's overthinking everything, his heart is just so completely different, and it just shines on page. Again, that's why I love that internal dialogue. I love being inside of his head, no matter how hard it was in seeing his struggles. I mean, I'm so thankful that for his mom in this volume and what she says to him. I mean, I don't think it's a spoiler, but when they have a conversation and she's like, you tell me right now that you will not kill yourself. And I'm glad that that was established very early on in the series, because the later, like the more you get into the series, you're going to deal with some more and more feelings. And in this volume, I feel like it was a very big turning point for me, because my feelings started to change for Shoya. And I was just amazed. If the mangaka's goal in volume 1 was to have you hate Shoya, mission accomplished. But if the goal in volume 2 was to stir compassion in you for Shoya, mission accomplished. Because after that, I really just found myself sucked into his world, sucked into his decisions, and cheering for him, wanting him to open up and to just be able to have friendship, because it was very hard. I don't remember if it was in volume 2 or volume 3, where he puts X's on everybody's faces and he does not make eye contact with them. And then he imagines what he feels like they're saying about him. And it's just like, Shoya, no, he's being so very hard on himself. And that, I mean, literally that just continues. And especially when you see him talking to Shoko, and you see, I mean, he, like I said, he just has this earnestness where he just wants to be there for Shoko, and he's willing to do anything to help her find her old friends, to help restore those broken friendships, and help her create new friends, to make a new way, so to speak, for her. He wants to hear her voice. And again, it just shines off of the page of how much he tries, and his whole arc, his whole journey of him wanting to help Shoko, seeing how Shoko helps him unexpectedly, and then seeing his journey about friendship and him questioning what is friendship. And talking about that, let's go ahead and talk about Tomohiro, who is one of the most amazing side characters in this manga. I love Tomohiro so very much. He is right here. I don't think this is a spoiler. So yeah, he is right here. Oh my goodness, I love his character. I really feel like everybody needs a Tomohiro in their life. He is so amazing. I feel like in a way he is a little bit of like the humor relief or comedy relief, but I feel like there's so much more to his character. There was so much more depth, and the way that he was just there for, I was about to call him his nickname, Yasho, was so transforming. And I just loved his character so very much. I mean, he really paves the way in showing Shoya how and what friendship is. And I love when Tomohiro tells him, he's like, friendship goes beyond logic or words. Like, you can't put friendship into words, so to speak, and what it is. And I really love that. And I love seeing Shoya come in full circle with that and see the truth and the fruit of Tomohiro's words. I really, really enjoyed that. I love how Tomohiro was creating this movie in this manga. That was one of my favorite parts. I loved the movie at the end. It was so very good. Hated what somebody said about it, but I really loved how Shoya was just able to say things. He was able to be, he at times can be very frank, but in a mean way. But at this point in time, he was very blunt, very straightforward, but in a loving and just a friend kind of way. And Tomohiro is just instrumental in helping Shoya come to that point. And I love how Tomohiro just stuck by Shoya's side through this entire manga. I mean, I could not get enough of Tomohiro. I really, really loved his character very, very much. And again, I'm just so thankful he was in this story. Again, he's one of my favorite characters and just was very, I wouldn't say very unexpected, because there was another side character, Satoshi, that was very surprising to me. I did not expect to like his character as much as I did, but I really love Satoshi as well. Like Tomohiro and Satoshi are two of my favorite side characters in this manga. I could not get enough of them. I was very excited every time when they were on page. Though Satoshi makes some decisions, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he just did this. But I get it. I get where it's coming from and why he did what he did, but it was hard to see. But I guess since I got ahead of myself, let's talk about Shoko. Whew, I am thankful that for almost the entire volume that we do not get things from Shoko's perspective, because I don't think I could handle it. It was very hard enough at times seeing things from Shoya's perspective of how he interpreted things, and even though he says that he is very selfish and that he has sort of taken information in from other people the way that he feels is most fitting for himself, it was still really hard seeing. I'm trying to think of how to word this. Shoko says certain things, especially in volume 4, that were really, really hard. And this volume tore me up. It tore me up. Like, I didn't cry in this volume. We'll get to that, I'm sure. But the things that Shoko personally voiced, and just sometimes you can see that people don't change. Shoko changes. Shoya definitely changes. But there's certain people around Shoko that do not change, it feels like. And it was just very hard seeing things from the past come back up in the present moment. And Shoko, honestly, when I first was reading her character, she is deeply inspiring. I do not know how she was able to handle the things that happen to her and still be able to smile. I just don't know. I mean, I could not wrap my mind around that, and just the way that she gives Shoya another chance is almost unbelievable. I mean, it's so inspiring, it's courageous, and I mean, it really challenges, I feel like, especially me as a person. I feel, I guess I can't talk for other readers, but for me as a person, I really feel like it challenged me to forgiveness. I mean, anybody can show forgiveness to another person, even to someone like Shoya, who was such an intense and horrible bully. For Shoko to just give him that second chance was just like I said, almost unbelievable. But this manga makes it believable, and you see her on this journey. Things are definitely not easy. She's not a shallow character. There's so much depth to her, and you just see it more and more as this manga comes and folds. I mean, not comes, but as it unfolds. And oh my goodness, I just was so wrecked. I know I'm skipping a volume, but volume 6 wrecked me. I mean, the end, the beginning of volume 7, I mean, so much of volume 6 was just really hard to read. And whew, I mean, it was really emotional. But this is the moment that we start seeing more of Shoko, what she's thinking, what she's feeling. And those were some of the hardest chapters to read. And you just see her heart, her heartache, and again, just the things that she felt for herself really comes out. It was a very emotional and impactful journey. And I'm so glad, with that said, that volume 7 really ends on a hopeful note. When you start A Silent Voice, please plan to finish the whole thing. That first volume is hard. It's brutal. It is hard seeing Shoya be the bully he was. And even as you're going through these 6 volumes to get to this final one, it is never easy. Shoya, there's only one time that I feel like he truly, honestly smiled, and everything just came crashing down after that because of what happens. And there's a time that he just shuts himself down. He reverts back to old ways almost. Not to a bully, not to say that, but he reverts back. He cuts himself off, and it's never easy reading this story. This story is definitely triggering, but I can say that when you get to volume 7, it is so beautiful. It is so heart moving, and it's very, very emotional. Like the first chapter, it gets me every time. I love that conversation that Shoko and Shoya have on that bridge. And I am thankful that we have this thing. I feel like it's more prevalent. I've only seen it in manga, where honestly, you see how Shoko's feelings reach Shoya. It was a very pivotal part, and I loved it. I loved seeing how her feelings just reached him, changed everything. It was beautiful. It was so emotional though, but it was so beautiful and really, really touched my heart. I love that first chapter in this volume 7 so much. I will say in a nutshell, I really loved how this manga ended. It was very powerful. I love the ending lines from Shoya at the end. It was so good, and the end made me tear up as well, especially when he voices what he does about hope. I mean, honestly, this series really, if you felt heartbroken in the beginning, if you felt angry, if you felt sad, even throughout this story, and you're upset with different characters, like, what's her name? Naoka? Oh my goodness, I could not stand that girl, the teacher. I mean, Naoka, she sort of redeemed herself later on in a different volume, but she is not my favorite at all. But when you get to the end, I really feel like every reader will feel hope. I mean, you cannot help but feel just full of hope, I feel, for Shoya, for his transformation, for what he went through. I mean, it just shows that there's hope for any person, that forgiveness is life-changing, that second chances are something that anybody can give, especially like if Shoko can give it, anybody can give that second chance to another person, and that new friendships can be friendship can be restored. New friendships can be not gained. What's the right word I'm looking for? Just new friendships can begin. There we go. It is a beautiful and healing and impactful, heart-wrenching story. I love this back cover. I feel like this series also really shows the nuances and the ups and downs of friendship, and just fighting for friendship, and how we all should grow and change as people, though hopefully for the positive, because in the middle of this series that you do see that people do not always change for the better. Sometimes they don't change at all. And then sometimes, like Shoya, they change to be an amazing, more amazing person that is really just touching everyone around them. He may not feel like he is, but his actions show that it went so much further than he ever expected, ever anticipated. And I think that's true for all of us, that we don't know how our words, our actions are going to impact people even years later. And that even if those words that we said in the beginning, or when we knew them, that they're more on the negative side, that we could come across them again, our paths could cross, and that we have a second chance to restore what we lost, and to something new can grow between that person. This manga just highlights so much of that, and I really enjoyed a lot of the characters. I didn't talk about her, but I love Yuzuru. I really love their character a lot. Amazing kid. I think it was Shoya who said that, and just 100% echo that. There were so many different parts of this manga that I really, really enjoyed. It was a very deeply impactful series that I would definitely recommend. But again, read all the way to volume 7, because again, when I read volume 1, I was like, what did I get myself into? But everybody's right. This is one of the most powerful redemption stories I feel like I've just came across in general. I mean, I've read some powerful redemption arcs and stories, but Shoya, his character transformation, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, there's not much to say unless just go read it. Just go read it to see what I mean. And this is sort of off topic a little bit, but one of my favorite things about Shoya, or like his outfit, is how his tag always sticks out. It is the cutest thing. It is the cutest thing. I don't know what it is. I was like, it's just part of his quirkiness, his charm that he has, and his awkwardness. I never thought that I would come to like his character by the end. I mean, it's just amazing to me as a reader to see how far I personally came when reading this story. But I loved it. I loved it. So truly, thank you, manga community, for just putting this on my radar, because I had wanted to read it for a long time, but I didn't pick it up. But this is one of those series that, yes, you're probably gonna cry. You're probably gonna feel your heart ripped out, but it's gonna be put back in. You're gonna feel so hopeful and just deeply touched by this story, and it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. And I would suggest reading the manga over watching the movie. Like, read the manga, then watch the movie, because the animation is absolutely stunning and very gorgeous. And I do think that they're very true to all of the characters, but you will get so much more. You will see Shoya's story shine even more powerfully than it did in the movie. It's just such a great story. I don't know, as you can see, I have volumes 1 and 7 that I personally own, then 2 through 6 I checked out from my library. I'm undecided if I want to purchase this for myself. This is one of those series that you may not necessarily reread often or even reread again, but the impact will be unforgettable. And I do feel like I think I put that in my Goodreads review, that I feel like I voice that often, that I say series are unforgettable, but this one I really feel is unforgettable. Like, I mean, you can't read Shoya and Shoko's story without being deeply touched and hopefully deeply influenced, impacted by their story, and want to make a change, want to make a difference in your own life, and to aspire to love and forgive like these characters do. And so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I highly recommend it. And I guess wrapping up there, if you have read A Silent Voice, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Did you enjoy it? Was your heart ripped out? Who was one of your favorite characters? And if you haven't read A Silent Voice, what about maybe this review made you interested or want to try and check out this, I was about to say, yeah, this book. I was about to say this movie, this series, or even the movie. Have you seen the movie but not read the manga? Are there other series that you know of that are deeply impactful that you would recommend? I would love to hear from you, friends. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!